Well, hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday, December the 9th. I hope you've done all of your Christmas shopping and your decorations are up. I'm Robin Zimmerman, and welcome to the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands final webinar in our author series for 2021. But you are in for a treat. We have a fantastic author that you're going to meet, Sarah Penner. And the book is called The Lost Apothecary. And another person that you're going to meet, because she's going to be doing the interview, is Janet Porter's co-chair for the author series, my dear friend, really my first friend when I moved here 3 years ago, Bobby Helbig. Her daughter actually sold us our house in Indigo Run. So I'm going to bring Bobby on now. She's going to open up her video and turn on her microphone, and we're going to just chat for a little bit. We will start promptly with our webinar at 5 o'clock. Hey, Bobby.
Hi.
So you're upstairs in your house, and you said it's a little chilly.
Yes, I was going to go turn on the heat and thought, no, I'm not going to turn on the heat yet. But I'm up in the man room where we don't come that often, so we don't keep the heat up. But
right.
My husband's picking up the grandkids, and I know they'll come in rather noisy.
Yes, it's so fun. We both have grandkids here on the island, and our daughters actually live in the same neighborhood. So they're best friends, and our grandkids get to see each other and play. It's kind of like a Ozzie and Harriet neighborhood. All the kids, all the parents watch out for all of the children. They're all about the same age.
Yep. There's always, and they're just, the bikes are all over the place, and
right.
Then they had Santa Claus on the
right.
Came on the fire truck the other night, and they have the Halloween.
Yes,
Robin and I frequent Halloween in our goofy outfits with our husbands.
Our husbands. The first year we were nerds. The second year for Halloween we were what were we?
Gangsters.
During the 20s. But we're not talking Halloween, we're talking holidays. So we're going to just take a few minutes before we start again with our webinar at 5 o'clock. With some things coming up and maybe some holiday traditions that you might have. You can certainly, you've got that chat button either at the bottom of your laptop or at the top if you have an iPad, and you can chat in some of your thoughts. But we are really looking forward to the holidays. I actually have a great grandchild. I know, a great grandchild on the way any day.
Oh, really? From where?
Well, Len and I, of course, blended our families almost 40 years ago. And so I have a grandson that's 30, and he and his significant other are expecting, well, they're due with Porter James like any minute. Well, any. Oh, wow. So we're very, very excited about that. They live in Savannah. And
that's good. So not too far away like Denver.
Yeah, it's not like Denver where you have a grandson and grandbaby, another grandson. So what are some of the things you like to do for the holidays, you and your family, Bobby?
Well, we didn't do a lot of decorating this year, which I kind of miss doing because we're going to be going out to Denver. But one of the silly things that we do is and I don't even remember how, but we ended up with 4 Spuds McKenzie. Those of you remember, I think it was Bud Light, flannel pajamas. So we must don those every morning when we come down for Christmas. And my husband's always read the night before Christmas. So even though Jack's only 5 months old, we're going to read to him. And just, we actually were up in Massachusetts for almost 30 years. And I don't know how people, when you have kids, you stay grounded in your town. And we had 4 or 5 families that would get together at our house on Christmas Eve.
Oh, wow.
And the other thing is we would measure our children every year. So all the kids would get measured, then all the women would get measured, and all the men would get measured. And it was funny to watch the kid who was here is now in front of the dad. So we have years of pictures of those.
That's so fun.
So much fun.
One of our traditions is, well, I haven't done it every year, but make Christmas cookies with the grandchildren. So I've skipped a couple years, but they love, putting the icing on and decorating and all of that. The other big thing for our family is we always watch National Lampoon's Christmas
Oh,
Vacation.
yes. Well, that's,
That
we sometimes call my son Clark Griswold. That's how he
that
is.
movie is such a classic. And then actually this past week we watched It's a Wonderful Life again. It's in its 75th year. They did the movie in 1946, right
Oh,
before I was born. Yes. Oh, and I have a
wow.
birthday coming up. My birthday's on December 20th. So I'm almost a Christmas baby.
Who knows? And yes, Sue, it was only height. That's all we measured. No weight, no nothing. Someone, someone typed in saying, I hope it was just height. And I said, yes, that's all. Nothing important.
I wanted to review some upcoming events in the community. Actually tonight, when you're finished with this, you could go over to Burnt Church Distillery. There's a Burnt Church Winery up in North Carolina, but this is Burnt Church Distillery, Sparkles and Spirits. And they're going to have a festive evening, 6 to 9 in Bluffton. Serge is doing the food. And of course, they'll have tastings and they'll have gifts. You might have had to already buy your ticket, not sure about that, but that's tonight. Then of course, ELF is running, and
Yep.
that opened last night.
Oh, okay, last night.
Yeah, it opened last night and it's running through January the 2nd, and that is at the Performing Arts Center. And so I know you're going to take your grandkids, and I think some of my kids are going to go on the day after Christmas. When are you going, Bobby?
The 19th during the day. We started doing, with my own kids who are older now, experiences instead of toys.
Right.
And so this came up, and that is one of their favorite movies, even my adult children. So
Yeah.
when this came up, I said, so we're gonna go do that. And I even bought the refrigerated cookies that say ELF on them, so that before we go.
Right. So we've
It'll
got
be
that coming up. And then this is really cool. The Choral Society
Oh,
is
that's
going to, yes, they are doing Sounds of Christmas at First Presbyterian Church. That will be on Friday, which is tomorrow, starting at 7 o'clock. So that is going to be awesome. And then
magnificent. Yeah.
magnificent. And then actually on Saturday afternoon, which is the 11th, USCB is having a carols in the courtyard, and they have a brass quartet and they have their full band and
Yeah,
all kinds of
something like every 15 minutes or every 20
Yes,
minutes.
right.
something
They've got
special.
different, right. So I mean, a lot going on. And then Lean Ensemble, which is one of the local theaters here too, is tomorrow night opens the play Art. So we're excited about that. So a lot coming down the pike for our holidays, and we're about ready. Let's see, we've got just a couple more minutes and we'll officially begin our webinar. And I'm excited, Bobby, that you're going to be doing the interview. Janet, of course, is on as a panelist, but you're going to be doing the interview, and you came on as co-chair with Janet to help us find the authors. When did you do that?
Yeah, Linda, I don't really know how it transpired, but Linda Kennan, who initially had this position, she was in the book group that I was in, and that's how we found out about it. And then she moved, and maybe Janet, but somebody said, hey, do you want to do this? And of course, me, I love books and I love the research and the people behind them. So I said, yep, I'll do it. So yeah, I kind of do, this is my first upfront. I'm usually behind the scenes, reaching the literary agents and seeing what books. So also as we're going to, if there's books that you've read, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll copy them down. And a lot of it depends on the literary agent and the availability of the authors. So but that way, if you as a book group in particular has had a really good experience with the book, that's, I'll see if I can see what, at least I can begin researching it that way for.
Right. And we also wanted to remind everyone, Bobby, that if you do, you mentioned the chat button, if you do have a recommendation of a book for a gift, whether it's for a friend, a colleague, a family member, any age, like I have 5 grandsons, 12 and under, and the 11 and the 9-year-old, I really want to buy books for. because they're really into reading Gibbs boys in Virginia. And so I need to go and get a couple of books for them. And then my sister, who's a horticulturist, I need a book. So if you have any suggestions, and I have a son-in-law that loves music and jazz. So if any suggestions of either novels, fiction, historical fiction, whatever.
Or even the nonfiction and gardening or music or something. Yeah, that you've, yeah, that's a really good idea too. So please feel free to chime in those. Yeah.
So Bobby, it is 5 o'clock. And so I'm going to, you can turn your video off a second, and I'm going to officially introduce you, because we are at that time where we're going to welcome everyone. So you can turn your, there we go. So ladies, I would like to welcome all of you to the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series for 2021. This is our 18th webinar. This is the actual last webinar for 2021. We've got a great lineup for 2022. We have a fantastic author that we are going to be interviewing in just a few moments. Her name is Sarah Penner, and she wrote the book called The Lost Apothecary, which has been very popular. And so we're just very excited that you have joined us. We know your schedules are busy, but we just appreciate your time, and you are in for a treat. Janet Porter is also online, but we're going to have Bobby Helbig, who is the co-chair with Janet of our author series. She's going to actually be doing the interview today. So I'd like to bring Bobby, my dear friend, who also lives in Indigo Run here on Hilton Head Island. She is going to join us now. There she is. Hey, Bobby. How are you doing? You doing well?
I'm doing wonderful, yes.
It has been a fabulous day. So we had a great luncheon today at the Sonesta.
And I won a prize. I won a prize.
You did. You won the film.
I never win anything, so I'm so excited.
That was so fun. We had a panel. Our theme, of course, as you know, ladies, is resilience for this year. And Betty Hamilton is our president. And today was about resilience in the arts, both in theater, local, and then even Broadway, and film, movies, and then also in the music business. So we had a great panel. I think it went smoothly. We had the lanterns from the Lantern Parade, and Betty, we celebrated her 80th birthday. She is just, yeah, she's an amazing woman. So we sang happy birthday to her, and we had a signature drink and made a toast. So it was a wonderful event. And just want to remind you, if you weren't able to be there today at the Sonesta for our luncheon, actually the first one in 2 years where we've been inside, we recorded the panel. Well, actually we recorded Betty's remarks and the panel.
I think so, yeah, I think so.
So it will be on the WAHI website, and as well as this interview with Sarah Penner. So just want to remind you, this is a webinar. We can't see you, you can see us, but please use that chat button. We have Nancy Fish, who is our communications team leader and chair, and she will, if there's any technical problems, she'll forward on those questions or comments or whatever to Bobby. So I'm really excited to have Bobby introduce our guest author today, Sarah Penner. So Bobby, it's all yours.
Okay, well, before I introduce, thanks, Robin. I'm so excited to meet the author of The Lost Apothecary, and it all started for me when I was just checking out emails one day, and I randomly got an email from my PBS station in Massachusetts, WGBH, and they mentioned they were going to be interviewing Sarah Penner about her new book, and I looked at it, and I said, being fond of authors and new books, and especially historic things, I investigated and end up having dinner alone at my table with my earphones on and listening to her interview. And at the end, and I had admitted to her that I hadn't read the book at the time, but I said, you know what, we have to get this author in. Her write-up, I was gonna write one, but I thought it was just so, I love with crackling suspense, unforgettable characters, and searing insight. The Lost Apothecary is a subversive and intoxicating exploration of women rebelling against a man's world, the destructive force of revenge, and the remarkable way that women can save each other despite the barrier of time. On the New York Times bestseller list for 7 weeks, USA Today and Publishers Weekly bestseller list for 3 months, and 100,000 hits on Goodreads. And I guess it's translated into 40 languages. And this I'm going to have to ask you about, is being made into a drama on Fox. She was born and raised in Northeast Kansas, growing up in a small log cabin nestled in the woods, and this picturesque retreat where she lived until early childhood frames most of her early memories. She began writing seriously in 2015 after attending a movie lecture given by Elizabeth Gilbert, who was on tour for her book, Big Magic, a game-changing book for creatives. Soon after her talk, she enrolled in her first online creative writing class, and she hasn't looked back since. She's an avid traveler and graduated from the University of Kansas with a degree in finance. In early 2021, after 13 years in the corporate world in finance, she says she left her day job and she's thrilled to call herself a full-time writer. When I'm not at the keyboard, you'll likely find me in the kitchen, the yoga studio, or running outdoors in the Florida heat. She's married to her best friend, Mark, and they're proud residents of the Sunshine State, where they live with their silky hair miniature dachshund named Zoe. So welcome, Sarah. Come on.
Thank
up.
you. It's so funny hearing you read my bio. And it's like Zoe, my dachshund, she's laying right here next to me. And I'm crossing my fingers that she doesn't start barking, but if she does, I have treats. And so I'll get her quieted down quickly.
That's fine. I'm sure we've got many dog people. And as I said, we were talking before, and I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the difference between virtual and how you appreciate the virtual versus being in a bookstore giving a book talk.
Absolutely. And thank you as well to everyone who's tuning in tonight. I know that a lot of us spend our days at our laptops or a desk, and then we to then log in the evening to listen to an author talk is very much appreciated. So thank you. And thank you to the organization as well for everyone who's taken a role in putting this on. So as I was mentioning before this started, our discussion started, I think every debut author, before they're published, they kind of dream about and romanticize this idea of an in-person book tour. And I was certainly that way as well. And COVID really started, the pandemic kind of started just a matter of months before my book came out. And I was, not before it came out, but as the publicity was really starting, it quickly became clear I was not going to be going on a tour. I mean, people couldn't even travel to see family. So there was an element of disappointment. But what I quickly realized is the virtual world really allows us an opportunity to see way more readers and fans than we ever would in person. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink of water.
Yep. No, please do.
It's funny, like all this talking, sometimes it just kind of makes my throat tickle. So there have been so many opportunities to reach readers. Yes, you've got your water too, Bobby. So many opportunities to reach readers that I really never would have had access to prior. So the example I gave a little bit ago, it was, I think in the fall of, it would have been 2020, the Library Journal put on an event, a panel, and I was on there as well as Kristen Hanna. And I remember thinking at the time, I would never be on a panel with Kristen Hanna if we weren't in this virtual pandemic environment. So, thousands of people tuned in to see Kristen Hanna, and they had to listen to me talk about my book at the same time. So that was really neat, where I feel like just through the pandemic, as tragic and horrible as it has been, there have been some silver linings. And one of them is just the reach that I've been able to have from a publicity and promotional standpoint. And the good news is the paperback comes out in February, and there will be an opportunity to do a tour next year.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. How long is it usually from hardcover to paperback before paperback comes out?
So it's usually 1 year. That's pretty industry standard. But a really good example, Where the Crawdads Sing. I'm sure you've heard of that. I don't know if you've read that book. I loved that book.
Yeah.
I want to say I think that was at least maybe 2.5 years before the paperback for that just came out a few months ago. So that was out for years.
And so there's no criteria as to what you, because yours was shorter than that and hers was 2 years. So I guess
Yeah.
is it how it runs or how your publicists
The,
decided?
the publisher watches the sales of
Mhm.
the hardcover,
Yeah.
and if the Lost Apothecary hardcover is still selling very well,
Mhm.
but I think it has to be a really special circumstance to exceed that 12 year or that 1 year, that 12 months.
Yeah.
And we know definitely where the Crawdads Sing was definitely, I think it far exceeded sales. And so they let it just keep going because hardcovers definitely have a higher margin. They make the publisher
Right.
quite a bit more money than the paperbacks.
Right. Well, after tonight, that margin will just jump for you.
Right.
So in starting with the book, the opener of the book, I'm going to quote it because it just like grabbed me. Like I said, what's not to love about this? Rule 1, the poison must never be used to harm another woman. Rule 2, the names of the murderer and her victim must be recorded in the apothecary's register. So if that doesn't hook you, I don't know what did, but let's start at the beginning and looking at your website. You were in finance and writing. Have you always wanted to be a writer? And why jump? What was it that made you jump at that point into writing? Which was a wonderful jump, by the way.
Thank you. When I look at my childhood and the types of things that interested me when I was younger, I always had a journal or a diary. And then in my kind of adolescent years, as I was processing all of the confusion and heartache that comes along with high school and college, I was writing terrible poetry. The point being that I've always loved words. And even in the workforce, when I was working in finance, one of my favorite things, on a day-to-day basis was developing communications. So whether it was a presentation for our directors, an email, etc. So I've always loved writing. And gosh, I'm trying, people ask me, how long did it take to write the book? I want to say it was about 2015, that Elizabeth Gilbert presentation that she gave for Big Magic, which I have right here. Anyone who considers themselves creative, I highly recommend this book by Liz Gilbert, Big Magic. It's all about eliminating fear in the pursuit of creativity. So she was on tour. I went to this while I was working in finance, and I left. I realize this is kind of a big statement to make, but I almost left like a changed woman. And because she asked the room a hypothetical question about pursuing our dreams. And if I come back in a year to this room, same audience, and you haven't taken any step towards your creative dreams, how will you feel? And do you want to feel that way? And it just prompted me to do a lot of soul searching about why do we as humans hold off on our dreams? And what if I just decided that I was going to go home tonight or this week and take that first little baby step? Yeah. So while working in finance, I started taking online writing classes where every week we had to complete an assignment. And we would kind of workshop it with our online classmates. And I loved the exercises. I loved learning about the tenets of fiction and nonfiction and story structure and the 3-act plays and all of these things that you as the reader don't really realize go into a story.
Right.
Character arcs and all of that. So I decided to, while working full-time, to start writing a book. And that was the book before The Lost Apothecary that was never agented, never published. It was kind of my first attempt at writing a novel-length work of fiction, but it will never see the light of day. It will forever be kind of in my desk drawer.
Yeah.
But my second book was The Lost Apothecary, and I felt like a magic with that story from day one. And I just felt the universe kind of propelling me forward. It was very well received by agents. I had 5 agents want to represent me when I approached them with the manuscript.
Mhm.
And then we sold it overnight to
Wow.
HarperCollins. So it was
Yeah.
clear that the industry was going to be really receptive to this story. So I had the, great fortune this past March to be able to leave finance after 13 years. And I think you mentioned that in the bio. And so now
Yeah.
I write full time, and
Right.
life looks a lot different, but it's been really wonderful.
And I think, I think about COVID and we talk about silver linings, and I think there's some people who may have found a silver lining with the time that we have, like, okay, what am I going to do now? And it gives you an opportunity to maybe jump ship and try something new. And I think I have writing journals and diaries with the little keys and all that. And I have ideas here, and see, you're giving me motivation. I mean, I have ideas here, but and I'm not, I mean, I was a teacher of reading in English, but not anything professional. So you're sparking my interest now.
Well, and it's one of the themes in the book as well, this idea of fulfillment versus happiness. And it really parallels quite nicely with my own background, in that I was always happy and content working in finance. I mean, it paid the bills. I liked my coworkers, my routine was fine, but there was always something kind of unfulfilled. And I think a lot of times when we are introspective and think about what brings us joy and fulfillment, we need to look at what we enjoyed in our younger years before we had all of this responsibility as an adult with family and bills and marriages.
Right. So back to that, what made you happy then? And that was books. Books for me too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the things that made me happy were the journaling, the being outside, exploring. And so those are things that I try to do more of now.
Yeah. That's so when you write, do you have a storyboard or an outline? Do you computer, or do you pen and pencil? Because I still pen and pencil.
I cannot write longhand. And I know that a lot of authors do, like Ellen Hilderbrand, she writes all of her books on a notepad. And then when she types them in, she kind of gets this automatic built-in revision.
Edit, yeah.
I cannot do that. My hand starts to hurt after just a couple of rows of writing. And I also feel like my brain, it's already on to the next thought before I've written it down. So I can type really fast. So I write.
Somebody else had said that. I was listening to the Friends in Fiction podcast, and that's exactly what I can't remember which author it was. So that's interesting that you say that your brain works faster than your hand, or your hand works. Yeah.
No, my brain works absolutely faster than my hand. So I type all of my books. I do everything on my laptop. Which I guess is its own risk in the event that your computer crashes or something. I try to save my files out to the cloud every few days. Hopefully that doesn't get hacked. That's the thing with technology. Like there is no, foolproof way. But
so how did you start? Do you outline it, or do you just go right in for it?
Well, it's funny you should ask. The Lost Apothecary, so they call that either a plotter or a pantser. You either plot or you fly by the seat of your pants. And
I'm gonna write that down.
In the writing world, you're either a plotter or a pantser. With the Lost Apothecary, I was a pantser, meaning I just kind of knew a general premise, and then I started writing. I did not know like what each scene and the first third, the middle third, the final third. I didn't really know what all of that would look like.
Let me ask you, what did you start with? What was here to start with?
2 paragraphs, which is essentially, if you turned over the book now to read the cover, like it's essentially what's written there. That's very similar. I knew that I was going to have 2 timelines, one of them being an apothecary poisoner, one of them being a present day woman in London who finds a vial.
Right. And where did that idea come from? Or do you not even know? It just pops in?
It just pops in.
I think it was so different than so many of the other history. And that's what just drew me to it. I thought, how fascinating to learn about that part of history.
I mean, I love, when we talk about personal interests, I love like essential oils, cooking, herbal teas, a little bit of gardening. I love, so like if I have a physical ailment, like maybe an upset stomach, I'm absolutely going to go Google like what herbal tea I could take to help make myself feel better, like ginger, before I'm going to go take something from Walgreens that's like a chemical in my body. So I've always loved this idea of kind of healing. I guess you could call it a little bit of Eastern medicine. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a full believer in science and modern medicine. And if that stomachache doesn't go away, you can, definitely bet I'm walking over to Walgreens. But
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And sometimes it's better for you.
Yes. And so I've always liked that idea. And so, historically, before modern medicine existed, who did people go to? They went to an apothecary. And this person, which it was actually a largely male dominated field.
Right. Yeah.
This person, which is essentially a predecessor to a pharmacist, would blend these tinctures or make these recommendations about different herbs and plants and roots and all these things that someone could try. So I knew that the subject matter would interest me greatly. I also knew from traveling that little apothecary shops were popping up all over the world. So all of these big cities, a really well-known one is C.O. Bigelow Apothecary in New York. And it sells all sorts of toiletries and lotions and things like that, makeup. But I knew apothecaries were trendy. And I also knew that if I walked into Barnes and Noble and asked for a fiction book on an apothecary, there wasn't really anything to speak of. So I felt like this confluence of my personal interests, what's trendy, and then what doesn't exist. There's a gap in the market. And that's a little bit of my finance.
Pieces fit.
Yeah. That's a little bit of my finance and business mind coming out saying, where is there a gap in the market, but something that people are interested in. So I decided to just fill that gap with my own interests. So the apothecary was the origination of the idea. And then the subplots and the other elements throughout the story just kind of came organically as I pantsed my way through the story.
Right. So then you created the different characters as you went along. I just thought it was fascinating because as I said, I think you're right. There was a hole there, and this was just something completely different and interesting. And I said, you always talk about, all of us seem to like books with female protagonists. And and by the end, I felt like I really knew these ladies, your description, so did you always know there would be the three characters, or the two main ones, and then
I always knew that the apothecary would exist, of course, Nella. And then I knew, because I wanted there to be a dual timeline, I knew that Caroline would come into play. The wild card is the 12-year-old Eliza, and she was the third and final protagonist to come to fruition. And the reason why she came to fruition in the story, originally she was going to just be a character and we weren't going to hear her point of view. But early in the book, and so I'm not spoiling anything here for anyone who hasn't read it, but early in the book, we see Eliza walk into Nella's shop and she's buying poison. And she walks out with these poisonous eggs in her pocket. And we know that she's going home to the next day cook breakfast for her master, and she's going to poison him. And when, as an author, when writing each scene, I kind of try to ask myself, what does the reader most want to know or see now? And I knew the reader would want to follow her home and see her make that breakfast. And
because I thought for sure she was going to break an egg all the way home. And I thought, thank goodness. No offense to the master, but I thought, okay, no egg broken.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to put the reader in the kitchen with her while she was dropping those eggs into the pan and watching them sizzle, and what would be going through her head. She was scared of the fumes and what it might do to her. And I wanted to put the reader in the dining room when she puts the plate in front of him and he starts to take those first bites. I wanted the reader to see all of that firsthand, and I didn't want them to hear it secondhand through another character.
Person. So that's why you created her.
So I created Eliza, and I really quickly realized, she's 12 years old. She's very curious and inquisitive and stubborn. And kind of in many ways still a child. And I quickly realized she was just a lot of fun to write and really refreshing, especially when compared to this dark and vengeful
I was gonna say
apothecary.
there's some heavy stuff going on, and she kind of lightened it up being a teenager, and doesn't matter what century they're in, so a teenager's a teenager.
Yes. So she lightened it up greatly for me as the writer as well. And then it, it's funny now she has become most people's favorite character. And one question that I get all the time, and I don't know if it's on your prepared list of questions, but I'm often asked, will there ever be a sequel to the Lost Apothecary? And my intent, it's not the next thing I'm working on, but my intent is someday in the not too distant future, I would like to sit down and write Eliza's story in the future.
She went from there. I think, I think it ended well enough, but I think you're right. People are going to go, well, I wonder, is she going to go this way or is she going to go that way? It's what she's going to do with it. And my favorite question, I'm so intrigued about historic books and the research. Can you talk a little bit about the research, especially for me, and something that I didn't know was so prevalent or not prevalent for women in those days? So to learn about, did you travel and what was some of your research?
So I have been to London many times through working, my finance days, and so many of the places, the locations in the book, like Ludgate Hill, Fleet Street, those are all places that I've walked and been to, and really in many ways inspired my interest in old London and kind of these buried secrets of the city. The beauty, however, of modern technology is that a lot of my research I was able to do via digitized manuscripts that librarians and archivists have put out online for, the public to use. So what I looked at a lot of my research was spent on looking through these old pharmacopoeias. That word is mentioned a couple of times in the book, and it's essentially an encyclopedia of drugs, but they have these pharmacopoeias digitized online from the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s.
Really?
So when I was looking at, what I wanted to know, what would an actual 18th century apothecary have in their shop that they're referencing for information. So I was able to go find these historic books that I could look through. I also have on my shelf, one of the most interesting things I read, I mentioned that a lot of apothecaries were men. I have a man's firsthand account, kind of a diary in a way, and an inventory and a register of all of his income and expenses. And he was an apothecary as well as a midwife. And so I was able to, and I think it's the 1780s. It was very close to when the book was set. And so I was able to kind of see what's a day in the life for him. How many customers is he seeing? What issues do they have? What is he dispensing? What is he charging for what he's dispensing? So that was helpful. And then of course, the most fun part to research was the poisons. So I really, when I started the book, it's so tempting to be lazy as an author and say, I'm just going to have arsenic and kind of the most common known poisons. And I really set out to be fresh and original. And I wanted poisons that people haven't heard of that they would still find them very interesting. So I made sure that all of the symptoms and reactions that the characters have to different poisons are true to life, that, documented responses to a certain toxin. So I made sure to do that. Where I used my imagination and kind of took some liberties is that I had to be creative and inventive about how you might disguise those poisons. So the Nux vomica in the egg, I just kind of thought if I wanted to hide a poison, maybe I would poke a little hole in the egg and cover it with wax. So that was where the creativeness in me came out. And that I made up those recipes and things like that.
I think that was it's so interesting because most women, I figure, kind of did that anyway, when I was up in Massachusetts, worked at Old Sturbridge Village, 1850s, and women did that because that's what they did. But to, to have it be a woman do that in the 1780s as a profession
Mhm.
was very interesting. And did you start off just wanting to do apothecary and then go into the dark side of that with her?
No, I knew for the sake of the story and reader interest that I was going to need something sinister and
yeah.
that would raise the stakes of the book. So no one wants to read, well, people do like cozy
Everybody lived
mysteries.
happily ever after.
Yeah. No one wants to read about, they come in and they get their ginger for their stomach ache and then they leave and their stomach ache goes away. Like, we can't be talking about stomach aches in fiction. We have to be talking about pregnancies, deaths, murders, marital affairs, famous people being brought down or ruin or what have you. So I knew this apothecary needs to be sinister. The stakes need to be really high. She needs to be a serial killer that's sort of haunting the city and they can't find her. I knew all that needed to exist.
Yeah, and I think that's necessarily the climax, but yes, that's important in that. And I'm going to say, for those of you who haven't read the book, if you want to mute for just a minute when I come back on and do that, but if you don't care, to say, did anybody else think that and I'm so sorry, I forget the other character, the present Caroline was killed, that was going to kill her husband. Did anybody else think of that, or is that what you did on person?
So it's funny you ask that. So this is something my editor and I worked really closely on, because James, the husband, he's very manipulative, but kind of in a subtle way, which I guess is the epitome of manipulation. Is he's not really being overt about it. He's being very clever about it. So I think a lot of readers probably wonder the question that you just asked, Bobby, about whether she purposely poisoned him. And I think there's a lot of things in the story that are left up to interpretation. And one of those questions is, when Caroline told James that the eucalyptus oil was in the bathroom on the counter, I think is what she says. She doesn't really explain much, like what the bottle looks like or that it needs to be used topically only. She just kind of says it's on the counter. And so I think people maybe can wonder subconsciously, did she not care if he ingested it, or was she so angry that she just thought, I'm going to leave that detail out? Like, there's a few, and it's actually a book club question, what you just asked. And so I think that's one of the many questions that is up for reader interpretation.
That's, yep. And if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask in the chat, did you do mudlarking yourself?
I did.
Have you ever done that yet?
Yes, I did. So it was just before COVID. I went out to London, and just by myself, actually. And one of my primary objectives when I was out there was to go mudlarking. And you have to acquire a permit. So if anyone wants to ever go, highly recommend it. It's a great alternative to going to the museums or walking the city. So you pay for a permit, and you need to carefully monitor and study the tide tables for when it's safe to go onto the riverbed. And there's all kinds of instructionals out online that you can look at if you're interested in this. But I went mudlarking. I found lots of cool things. I think they're cool. I think a lot of people would think it's just river junk or what have you. But I did not find an apothecary vial, which would have been amazing. But I found a lot of old pottery and some like little handmade pins, like sewing pins. And I think I found definitely animal bones, which I realize is kind of gross, but that, livestock all over the city for hundreds of years. So it was a very fun experience and definitely contributed to some of the sensory detail that I was able to put into the story.
Yeah, and I think that's neat to do that. Now, in the intro that said, kind of a finalizing, that it's going to be for Fox drama. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So it's funny how little I know. You all really know just not about what I know. When you sell your TV and film rights to Hollywood, they just kind of take off with it. And I don't know a ton, but Fox optioned the book for a drama series that was announced earlier this year in the spring. And they have attached a producer and a screenwriter and are currently drafting up the script. So that's as much as I know. My family and friends like to ask who's been cast and when can I watch it on TV? And I always laugh and tell them, if we even get to that point, that would be amazing. Like, there are hundreds of steps that a book has to go to actually hit the screen. We're like step 3. We have a long way to go. And at any of these points, the whole thing can just be trashed or forgotten about. So Hollywood is very fickle. They're always on to the new next biggest thing. So fingers crossed, though, that things continue to proceed.
That would be neat. Have you picked out the people you would like to play the parts in your head?
I was on a radio interview last night with an Australian radio network, and the interviewer suggested Kate Winslet for Nella, which I really loved. I had not heard her name thrown out as an idea, but I think she would do a phenomenal job. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I'm terrible with these casting questions. So always taking ideas.
Yeah. And lastly, before we let you go, everybody's question is, what are you working on? Are you allowed to divulge what you're working on and share with us your next book?
I'm limited in details because the announcement has not been made, but I can tell you that I am working on something new. It's already under contract. It's due next month to my editor. So my stress level each day is just a little bit higher. It is historical. It is not related to the Lost Apothecary in any way. It has kind of a feminist bent. It features two really strong, stubborn women, lots of cliffhangers, lots of twists. And I think the readers are really going to love it.
Well, we are looking forward to another book. Robin, if you're ready to pop back in, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to doing this, and thanks for writing such an interesting book, and best of luck on your other ones. We'll be looking for it.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. That was a wonderful interview. We appreciate your time for the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.
So if you want to buy the book, you could either go to independent bookstore or Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Bobby's got a copy that she's going to give back to me. And just remember that we do videotape all of our author series webinars, and so it will be up on the website shortly, we hope in the next day or so. And our next webinar will be in January, on January the 13th. And it's Rose Dunphy. Is that right, Bobby?
Orange peels and cobblestone, or versa versa. I don't have the other stuff with me. Right.
Sounds exciting. And with that, we're going to again thank Sarah and thank you, Bobby. Good job. And happy holidays to all of you ladies.
Yes.
Please enjoy your time with your families and your friends, and stay healthy and stay safe. We'll see you next time. We'll see you in 2022.
Right. Thanks again, Sarah. Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.